Howdy, folks. I'm Brian,
I'm Amber.
and here is some Reddit. This is the quality content you have today. Me banging into things, metal stuff behind me. When Amber told me about this story, I just knew I had to read it. Our first story is titled, Am I a Jerk for Refusing to be my friend's baby's godfather after I was given a legally binding contract to sign with requirements attached? The short story is that my wife is from another country, and we met a couple in which the husband's wife is from the same country. We are great friends. Almost 9 years now. We've done a lot together. Best friends, hands down. The husband has no family alive that talks to him. The wife obviously only has the husband as her family is not here in the US. Well, the wife is now pregnant with a baby girl. For the sake of conversation, we will call her Jane. The husband asked me if I could be Jane's godfather. To note, they are Catholic. I was honored. My friend was thrilled, and the next day he dropped off an envelope with some papers in it. After he left, I looked at it, and it was a legal contract that I needed to sign in order to be the godfather. Obviously, I thought it was a little overboard, but I read over it anyways. It has many things that I must do as a godfather, such as I must go to every Catholic event in which Jane attends, such as her christening, confession, confirmation, etc., which I know are normal events for a Catholic child's life. Not a big deal. Then we get into the ridiculous things. I have to consider becoming Catholic. I must give a gift of at least $500 for each of these events, and on birthdays and Christmas, gifts must be cash only and over $250. Oh no, it gets worse. I'm expected to save $25,000 over Jane's 18 years and set it aside for Jane's future college tuition. Her parents will provide the rest. Seriously? The list goes on to include various things such as being willing to cancel any plans I have if they need me to watch Jane or if they go on vacation, and apparently Jane can't go? Many of the other things on the list were silly or not a big deal, like spending time with her once a week. I called my friend and said it was nothing personal, but there was no way I would sign it. He got mad and said, I'm the only family they've got, and I should be thankful and honored to be asked. I told him I was honored, but the rules were extreme and ridiculous, especially when it comes to the money involved. He brought up that he knows that I'm a godfather to a niece, and I have sent her money, which I do. I gave her $100 a year. In her country, that's a ton of money. I told him there's a big difference between $100 and tens of thousands of dollars over 18 years. He essentially told me that he thought I was a good guy, but it was apparent that I was selfish. He has since blocked my number and my email. His wife has too. Mind you, his wife and mine talk nearly every day. Since he ended things, I shredded the papers that he gave me and left them in a bag and put them in his mailbox, with a note telling him that I was ashamed that he ruined a friendship over ridiculous demands. I told him I forgive him regardless. Lastly, I will note together this couple makes almost $200,000 a year. My wife and I don't even make $35,000 a year. So, am I a jerk for refusing to be Jane's godfather? So there are some edits here. I looked over them. I even started reading them, but they're just really not worth reading. They don't really contain any pertinent information. So I'm just going to get straight to my judgment. Alright, OP, I'm going to have to say that you're not the jerk in this situation. I know that might be hard for you, dear viewer, to believe in this situation because, it's such a gray area. But no, this is such an odd situation. to have such close friends who were really, there for you and whatnot, then suddenly to flip on you in a moment's notice because you weren't willing to give their kids like a ton of money. So I don't know a whole lot about being a godfather, except that like you are involved in a lot of like organized crime. You have to send people on like trips and stuff like that to go and collect like bounties, if you will. There's a lot of like legal involvement here. So maybe they think like when you get into the organized crime part of like being a godfather, you're going to start making a lot more than the $35,000. So it's really understandable in some ways, I think, that they thought you were going to make a lot of money to be able to do all these things. And of course, with your new crime spree life, you're going to have to absolve yourself of your sins. So it makes perfect sense for you to kind of go this route and to be able to be like, oh, I'm going to go to confession with her and absolve my sins and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, I can see things from their point of view here and see why they would think that you are going to have this kind of money. But it's clear that you're just not into organized crime. And yeah, I can't blame you for that. So, no, I don't think that you're the jerk in this situation. I mean, on a serious note, though, I honestly don't know what they're thinking here. I don't know why they would think that you would have all this money ready to be set aside for them, and it just seems such a weird flip for them. Like, for them to suddenly go from being, like, basically family to being no contact just because you didn't want to sign their contract seems so odd to me. And a legally binding contract on top of that. So, yeah, I don't know. These people do not necessarily seem like the kind of people that you want to continue to associate yourself with. Even if they, come back into your life, I don't know if so I know that you said you'd still be willing to be her godfather, but, in this particular case, I just do not see that any good coming from that. Because clearly they have a completely different expectation than what you do for being someone's godfather. And I just don't think that would be a good fit for either of you. So, yeah. Anyhow, take care and good luck. Haha, wait, you're serious? Ahaha, ahaha. Not the jerk. Sounds like they think that you're a sucker and want to use you as a free ATM. They want you to pony up at least $25,000 for future college fund? No. They want you to pay for the kid while they spend their own money on whatever they want. And OP replies, true, the wife does buy a lot of expensive stuff and is full of herself at times. Not the jerk. Putting $25,000 away for a child's college tuition that isn't even yours is a huge ask. I've never heard of a godparent giving so much money at every event, and they really shouldn't be surprised that you didn't go through with it. Most people wouldn't be able to handle that kind of financial burden, and they're going to learn that the hard way. I'm sorry that this situation ruined your friendship, and hopefully they'll see just how much of a selfish jerk that they're being. And OP replies, yeah, usually parents or the child figure out the college thing later. It isn't even my problem. All right. Our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Letting My First Grader Skip School Over a Birthday Party? Basically, my son is in first grade and his birthday party is next week. We live in a small apartment, so I let him invite 5 friends. He was super excited, and I sent out invites to the parents over social media. All was good. He and his friends were talking about it in class because they were obviously excited, and his teacher overheard and sent me an email on Monday afternoon basically telling me that the class rules for parties is similar to Valentine's, bringing treats, etc., in that you have to invite the entire class. I told her that there's no way I'm hosting 25 kids in my small apartment, and she suggested that I move the party to a nearby park instead. I told her that there's no way I'm watching and feeding 25 kids either, and that I'd never heard of this rule, and we certainly hadn't been invited to every other child's birthday party. She replied that this is indeed a rule, even if others had skirted it. And if he didn't bring the invitations for the whole class the next day, yesterday, he'd have to turn his behavior card to double red and miss recess. So instead, I took him out for the day, and we had a blast getting ice cream, getting a Happy Meal, and picking out a small early birthday present. And I explained in a simple way why we were doing what we were doing. I told my husband, and while he agrees that the rule is stupid, he basically called me a Karen for being so petty and having our son miss his education. That a day of missed recess isn't a big deal, and that he'd still get punished the next day, today, so we'll see. Basically telling me that my feelings are right, but that all I did was hurt my child instead. I'm worried he has a point. Am I a jerk? Alright, OP. I would disagree with your husband and say that your son gained a very valuable lesson today. And that lesson is that sometimes rules are nonsensical and that you shouldn't get punished for this in particular. Now, it doesn't make any sense why your son would be punished because of some limit that you set. And your son is excited for his party, and he's excited that he and his friends were going to get to hang out. That teacher had no right to step in and be like, well, now I'm going to punish your son because he didn't invite the entire class. Your son doesn't really have the authority on how big of a party you are willing to host. And sometimes people use this excuse saying that life isn't fair to basically justify, inequality in the world. And, I think that sometimes things happen in life where you're not always going to have the same exact experience as someone else. And in this particular case, I don't think that this was an injustice, right? I think that you inviting a small group of kids is perfectly acceptable. I don't think that creates a sense of none of the other kids didn't get to be invited and it's going to hurt them in a permanent kind of way. So really, I just think that the teacher, while they have a good intention, the road to hell is paved with those. And she needs to realize that not every parent is going to be willing to host a large birthday party for 25 kids, and that doesn't even make any sense. And the fact that some of the other kids are allowed to do this and have gotten away with it just means that shows how unjust of a system that this is, and that no one else agrees with her judgment either. And she's enforcing a rule and punishing a child for no reason, essentially. So I think that your son learned a valuable lesson, and it's that even if he shouldn't get punished for something like this, where this isn't a rule that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to punish him for it because he didn't have an active part in, planning out that kind of stuff. So I think that in a lot of ways you were just kind of protecting your son. So that's kind of what I think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Not the jerk. I'm a teacher and some schools have this rule, but you didn't break it. You said you invited them over social media. All they were doing at school was talking about the party, not handing out invitations. It wasn't the teacher's place to say anything. And moving a kid on the behavior chart to double red is not an appropriate consequence for not having the whole class at all. That's just an abuse of power. Behavior systems like that should only be based on the child and their actions, not anything to do with the parents or outside activities. Absolutely ridiculous. I would like to add that skipping a day of first grade will have zero long-term educational consequences unless the teacher decides to be a jerk about it. Also, we are still in the middle of a Panasonic, people. I would not invite 10 plus kids, let alone 25. I just thought the typo was funny. I'm not making fun of this person. I just enjoyed the typo here. Not the jerk. How can the school possibly dictate whom you invite into your own home? Is this a public school? I would pursue it with the principal, and if not, with the school board. If your child is penalized, I would see a lawyer. And OP replies, it is a public school. I was going to contact the principal today and see if he was still being punished. Should I do it anyways? The school year is nearly over, so I wouldn't worry about it anyways. Alright folks, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider giving me a like. If you didn't, consider giving me a dislike. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.